Hello and welcome back to another episode of the CPOstrategy Podcast. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Georg Rösch, Vice President of Direct Procurement Strategy at Jagger. It's a really great conversation today centered around digitalization strategies and how Jagger has become a leading industry force in procurement. I hope you enjoyed the episode.
Hello and welcome to the CPO Strategy Podcast.
Hello Georg and welcome to another CPO Strategy Podcast. It's good to have you here. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
How is it over there in Vienna?
It's good. I mean, it's summer. It's raining today, but it's actually really nice.
It's not what you want really in summer. It's supposed to be nice and warm, isn't it? Austria, I've never been. Nice place to live?
It is, certainly.
Oh, good. So what I love to do on our CPO Strategy Podcast is as a way of introducing yourself. I'd love to find out a little bit more about why procurement was the place for you. Would you be able to sort of give me an insight into sort of where it all began for you?
Absolutely, sure. So I would say I stumbled into this whole procurement space. Honestly, I was always a technology person. I had a very early interest in computers and everything technology and so on. But when everybody was playing video games, I was playing around with software and started coding and so on. So this is what actually got me started in IT, I have to say. And honestly, one thing led to another, and I kind of found myself in a small procurement startup in Vienna in development. And this is when I found out that this is actually really interesting stuff. Not in the beginning, to be fully fair. I was like, what is all of that? But no, I really grew into it and I really like it today. And I'm doing this for more than 20 years now. So I think I'm here to stay.
Obviously, I like it enough to stay then if it's 20 years, because a lot of people say that they fall into procurement by accident then, and that was obviously the case for you as well.
Absolutely. Honestly, I didn't even know that is a field that I could go into. And I think that's what many people feel when they end up in procurement. But no, I still love IT and everything technology related, and how we can use this in procurement is really what I'm interested in.
Yeah, and how did you end up at Jagger then? What was that like? What really prompted you to believe that this was the place for you?
So, first of all, it was local. That's a true answer. No, but I stayed with the company for such a long time now because I really believe that we can make a difference, and honestly, that's for me what I've learned in my more than 20 years now is that procurement can really have an impact on a lot of things that are that mean a lot to me as a person, as a father, as a family person, and that's what I really like about it. And this is what I'm here for in the company, of trying to evangelize a little bit, and also what keeps me up during the day, what keeps me going to work.
Absolutely. So for those that aren't necessarily familiar with Jagger, would you be able to sort of tell me a little bit about sort of what differentiates it and sort of makes it into the force that it is today in procurement?
Yeah, absolutely. So Jagger is out there since for 25 years or so now, I believe. It came together by a lot of M&A. So I'm coming like from a branch that was local here to Austria. But since the last years, it's really a one of the largest procurement software vendors out there. And what I really like about Jagger is our vision of autonomous commerce. So what does this mean? First of all, it sounds weird for a procurement software vendor not to have the word procurement in this tagline, so to speak. But that's actually on purpose. Because when you think about it, what a procurement software really does, it's about communication and collaboration between buyers and sellers. And so I really feel that the word commerce is much better suited to talk about this space than simply procurement, because you can only drive value if you also include the sell side, the supplier, into this whole equation. And the idea of autonomous commerce is basically to remove all friction points in the buyer-supplier relationship. That's really what it's about.
Fantastic, lovely. Thank you so much. And how has its approach changed over the years? Because obviously procurement has been through so much transformation itself, hasn't it? How has Jagger sort of adapted to that transformation and sort of, I guess, evolved as a company?
Yeah. So let's think a little bit about the history of the company, right? So Jagger is for a while was pretty good at, especially like the what I call the indirect procurement, right? So the whole P2P processes and so on. So really, I have a demand. I need to get like my PO out to a supplier, buy stuff, pay for it, and have this done. That's really where a lot of our business came from. But this changed over the last 20 years. And I'm sure we're going to talk about the last few years in particular later on. But over the last 20 years, there was also a lot about the whole source to contract process that's being added. That's so more important. It's not just the execution, but also the strategy of how you build everything, how you find the right sources, and so on. And as part of autonomous commerce, we found like 4 pillars to this, right? So it's networked, intelligent, comprehensive, and extensible, right? It's nice, so it's very easy to remember. So network basically means you collaborate with your suppliers, so buyers, sellers, partners, everybody. It's like the modern day town square where the commerce happens. Basically, it's like the foundation of everything. Then it needs to be intelligent. Intelligent means it's not just the data that you have in there and the processes you have in there, but how do you intelligently use the data to drive the processes on the solution, right? So that's the second layer of it. Then you have the comprehensive. That's really like all the functions that you have in a very broad set of functions, right? So starting from spend analytics, category management, supplier management, sourcing, contracts, ePro, supply chain management, quality management. So all of these beautiful things, how they work together, that's what we call the comprehensive layer. And finally, extensibility. And extensibility means a lot of different things. It means being open to communicate with other systems, because we at Jagger, we have a strategy of not being the best data provider out there, because we are not a data company, right? We are process transactional software company. So we bring in a lot of data from the outside because this is necessary, but this is what we focus on. We bring all this data into the solution so you can make the right decisions and drive them throughout the procurement cycle that you build in our system. That's one aspect. And another aspect is not every company is the same. So extensibility also means how can I tailor the solution to my needs, right? So that's what the extensibility is. And this completes the nice picture that we try to work against here at Jagger.
Easy to remember as well, it being nice as well, isn't it? So it just really goes to show that
marketing did a good job on that, yes.
No, for sure. And obviously that customer-centric approach, is that something that maybe your customers really appreciate, actually, that you're willing to adapt and be individual based on their needs?
I would love to say so. Yes, absolutely. And but the good thing is, and this is also what I try to tell our customers, is we're not a custom shop. That's very important, right? So we don't develop on a customer's spec, and people need to understand what is the difference between product and project, right? So we build a product. A product is here to serve a market, a broad market, right? I mean, we want to earn money as a company. That's why we're here for it, right? So we have to serve a market. On the other hand, the project team, they want to make one customer happy, while the product team wants to make a market happy. And that's a big difference. So, but in order to close this gap, you have to build a product that is so configurable that your project team can make their customers happy. That's really how we try to solve these things.
Is that a challenge as well, to sort of get both parts working correctly? Because without one, you can't have the other.
It's a balance that you have to strike here. Absolutely. I wouldn't necessarily call it challenging, because I mean, this is really like what we need to do. This is like at the core of whatever software company needs to do, right? So it's very different when you have like consumer software that just works in one particular way, as an example, or you have highly configurable, almost like development environments that you hand out to companies. And especially with SaaS software, as we have it here, you have to strike this balance, and you have to find the sweet spot there.
Yeah, for sure. And we briefly touched on it just a second ago about the transformation that procurement has gone through generally. We don't have to go through them all, but there's been things like COVID, inflation, and the like. The war in Ukraine. How challenging and sort of disruptive has it been generally for procurement and Jagger itself? And are we through, because it just feels like over the past few years we've been balancing one black swan event after another. Every year brings another challenge. Let's go back to 2019 when things were a little bit more calmer. But what have the last few years been like for you, do you think, and for Jagger itself, and how have you managed all this sort of disruption?
So I don't want to sound too drastic here, but I would say procurement is at a make or break moment currently. Because for all the reasons you just mentioned, supply chain and procurement were really in the spotlight in the last couple of years, right? So it's, oh my God, there is no shipments coming anymore. Oh my God, people are not buying the stuff that they bought before because like our whole way of life changed, right? So we were working from home and we were not going out into restaurants, but we were buying frozen pizzas now. And we did not buy new clothes because we were all in our trainers all day, right? So, it really changed us as a society. And therefore, it was procurement and supply chain management was really in the spotlight because they needed to navigate all of this. And this is why expectations and visibility of these functions really, really rose during that time. But now is the critical point. Can those functions deliver the value that they should? And can they continue this momentum? Okay. And this is why I'm saying they're at the make or break moment. And there is a lot of companies that really made this transition, that made this change, where procurement is an advisor to the business. And I think this is so critically important. Think about everything that's not going away, by the way. ESG, right? All of this stuff, environmental stuff, human rights stuff, the whole governance of those different processes, this is not going away. And there is consumer demand for this. And for me, it's quite clear who needs to manage this within the organization, which is procurement. Because for most organizations, and I'm heavily leaning on the direct procurement side, so very manufacturing heavy of buying the goods and services that you need for your products. You buy most of this stuff. If you take an auto manufacturer as an example, it's more than 85% of the value of a car does not come from the automaker, it comes from the suppliers, right? So therefore, procurement is such a critical role of managing all of these different agendas that are board level topics today.
Yeah, I didn't even mention ESG then, but as you say, that's becoming such an important topic at the top of the C-suite, isn't it? How do you find that procurement is managing all these different issues, and are they sort of having to sort of firefight rather than being a little bit more strategic?
And that's exactly what differentiates a great organization from one that's probably more of a laggard or a less mature organization. Let's call it like that. And this is really, I believe, where technology can play a key role in all of this to help you. Interestingly enough, just to say this, even though I'm coming from the technology side, technology alone is not the savior. Okay, I have to say that technology, you cannot slap technology on a problem and say it's done. That's not how it works. Okay, you need to update your processes. You need to uplift the skill set. But at one point in time, you will need technology to help you drive all of this. Okay, so it's always this combination of people, process, and technology to solve such things. And therefore, I believe technology can help you and does help you and is absolutely necessary to solve most of these issues.
Mm-hmm. Because it's an enabler, isn't it? To help
Exactly.
procurement organisations to go to the next level. Where is Jagger in terms of digital transformation and utilising technology and bringing that to the next stage? Just how important is companies having this digital transformation, because some are quicker than others, aren't they? Not everyone
Yes.
is at the same place of maturity. Just what is that like at Jagger?
Uh, To me personally, I believe that's one of the most challenging situations where we are in as a software provider, because you want to cater to the most mature companies, but many of your potential customers are not the most mature companies, right? So that's the balance that you need to strike. So you have to be ahead of the curve. You have to be ahead of the market. We take this very seriously. So we have a dedicated team that's only working on what we call innovation, which is basically new technologies. How can we use these new technologies? How can we bring this into the solution? And how do we drive value for our customers with these things? So the way that we did this is we came up with what we call like a maturity matrix, where you can really see on which step of the maturity scale you are right now. So it's basically five steps. Nobody is at step 5. So the current technology as it exists today is at step 4. Okay. And we are working on step 5. Okay. So this is constantly changing. But you as a customer, you can then say, okay, I'm a 2 at that process, I'm a 3 at that process, I'm maybe a 1 at that process. And where do I want to go? And what's like my financial gain in doing so? Should I even do this? Does this make sense for me as an organization? So we really try to work with those maturity models because it really helps us whenever we work with a customer to assess where they are and tell them this is where you can go and this is what you can achieve by doing so.
And is that something that Jagger didn't do before, or is it just sort of developed into something that more sort of tangible recently?
Honestly, I would say we didn't do this before, right? So, but it really helps us in having the right conversations with our customers, and this was part of the whole vision of autonomous commerce. That was really a good match because now we had this is our North Star. This is where we want to go. This is where the industry is going to go. This is where you should go, and now I can break it down into those different steps.
What about implementing technology that's strategic instead of just introducing it for the sake of it? There's no point in just because your competitors are introducing technology. If you're not being strategic enough and you're just bringing it in for the sake of it, you're not going to get any success, are you? But people do it. What would you say to sort of that are doing that?
I get it. I mean, people love technology. I love technology, right? But in a business, we shouldn't do things just because we like them. They should drive value, right? And this is also why when I talk to people, I don't really care if it's driven by AI or not, because it sounds fancy. If I can solve the problem any different way, I will also take it if it solves my problem. So we always have to think about what really helps us as an organization. What does drive value? Because at the end, what are we here for? We are here to make our customers successful. Okay. And how is success measured? Okay. You might have different KPIs in different organizations, but in the end, it's driving valuation and value for your company. That's what we're here for, right? And this can be totally different. This can be higher customer satisfaction for our customers. Okay, so higher customer satisfaction, higher shareholder value, all of those different things, and that's what we're here for. And we have to be very pragmatic about the means of how we do this, right? Because what works for one company potentially doesn't work for another company. And this is why the system needs to be so broad and so flexible to support all of those different scenarios.
And do you feel that approach there, that what works for one company doesn't work for everyone else, is what sets Jagger apart from competitors? Because that approach is so important to customers, isn't it? That they feel like they're heard, that they feel like they're sort of treated differently to what they need. Do you feel like that's what Jagger does best at?
Yeah. So I told you before, I'm in the company for more than 20 years. We have many people with almost like a similar tenure than I am, or more than 10 plus years in this space. So we live and breathe procurement. Okay. And it's always quite interesting to have the discussion with customers, because when you're on the customer side, how many of these projects did you actually do in your life? If you have 5, it's a lot. Okay. You potentially changed a lot of companies, had a lot of different issues. We do I don't know, more than hundreds of projects every single year. So I believe you have a lot of knowledgeable people that really know their stuff, that work with many different customers in many different industries. And of course, we have the know-how of what works with your peer group, what doesn't work, what you might think that should work, but it actually doesn't. So having this almost like this consulting approach. We're not a consulting company, right? So we have a very very good partner ecosystem that helps us with that. But the know-how of what will work and what will not work is definitely something that sets us apart.
Lovely. And what do you think procurement's next step is? What strategies do you feel can be implemented to push the industry even further forward?
Yeah. So I believe it's just like continuing the path that we're on right now, which is getting more data and market intelligence into the whole procurement process. So we have to get away from gut feeling decision making. Okay, so that's what we're really after. How can we bring all the information that's needed in procurement into a solution, have a data driven decision making? That's really what I believe we should do. Okay, and you can already see a change. Again, let me go back 20 years. How did you award business? Okay, it was basically done based on price. Okay, so yeah, 3 bids and a buy, right? You went out there, who was the cheapest one? Perfect, let's go. This changed, okay? Then we introduced things like total cost of ownership, right? Where we said, okay, wait a second, maybe the cheapest one is not the best one because of the ongoing costs that we have. Still very cost driven, but thinking more than just like the purchase value of the goods. And then we introduced other things like, well, wait a second, maybe the quality of that supplier is also important, or what has this past performance? And this made it into my decision making. And what I'm seeing right now is the more strategic information, coming back to what we said before, environmental impact, what's human rights, end-tier visibility, super important topic. All of this should make a difference and should influence my my decision making that I do in procurement, right? Because this is how I can drive my sustainability agenda of my company. This is how I can drive my reliability in my supply chain and all of this beautiful stuff. So this is really where I see procurement going, is taking in all of this information, be the advisor to the business, and make the right decision to drive the company strategy.
So that future is exciting then.
Yeah, it is. Future is exciting.
Very data driven, and that data driven approach, is so important. It's something, a tool in your arsenal that you didn't have 20 years ago. For you, having gone through, more than 2 decades of transformation, what's that been like firsthand, like to sort of see how procurement has evolved and changed? Because, that there has been a lot of transformation in a relatively short space of time, particularly in the last few years. Having that front row seat, could you have possibly imagined the direction of travel and the speed of which it has evolved?
You're always cleverer now than you've been in the past, right?
You tell me you didn't have a crystal ball.
Yeah, but honestly, no, I of course not, right? I did not foresee it playing out the way it did. When I look at the problems that we solved in the humble beginnings when I started, so I started in 2001. One of the first processes that we did was a sourcing process of parts based on drawings. Okay, just remember that was 2000 and when was that? 2003 or something like this. You know how this was done? There were CDs burned with the drawing file and sent across the globe for suppliers to access the drawing to give you a quote. So just think about how long it took to receive a quote back then. And like the logistical effort, just like to burning CDs with the right file, and then oops, it was the wrong file, and do everything over again. So that was a huge advantage. Nowadays, we don't think about this anymore, right? So we have direct integration to a PLM system. We pull the latest drawing, and it's accessible online by everyone. And so very, very different. And this is the whole transformation that technology can do. I say we are always in the digitalization business. As a software as a service company, everything you do is digitalization. But this is not the same thing as the digital transformation. I believe this is where people get a little bit confused from time to time what it really is, because I once saw a picture that I really liked. Digital transformation is not the faster caterpillar; it's the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. So it's really transforming into something different, and that's what we're seeing a lot. That companies change their business model. They run their business totally different than before. And how can procurement help with that? And how can, as an extension of this, how can we, as a software provider, help procurement be the team that helps with this within the organization?
Fantastic. And finally, maybe to sort of take you back to the beginning, as we've been doing, reflecting on procurement's past, for you, would you do anything differently? If I was to say, give you all the knowledge that you know now, would you change anything in your procurement journey if you were to sort of do it all again?
I would personally, and this is probably very, very personal, put more emphasis on the whole network piece of it. I believe we as an industry did us a disservice of not looking close enough to the supplier, who is a very important stakeholder here. We were too much focused on the buyer, because these are usually the ones paying for the software, to be fully honest. So supplier were the ones who access the software, but this was not like a revenue driver usually, right? And I believe that was a mistake, and this is something that autonomous commerce really tries to solve, and look at it more holistically about everyone who's involved in the decision making here.
Lovely. Thank you so much for appearing on the CPO Strategy Podcast today, Georg.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the CPO Strategy Podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, make sure that you subscribe or like our social media pages so that you never miss an episode. I'll see you next time.